What are emotions? Emotions are feeling. To start to understand your emotions, you need to ask yourself two questions. How do I feel? And how do I know? But others also have emotions. At the same time, as being aware of your own feelings, you also need to be aware of those of others. You also need to ask, how do others feel and how do I know about the same? You can't control other people, but you can control how you react to them. Anybody can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person and to the right degree and at the right time and for the right purpose and in the right way, that is not within everybody's power and is not easy. The grid shows the balance between high and low and negative and positive energy. High positive energy enables you to perform well, but you can't stay in that state forever. Sooner or later, you need to reduce the energy, stay positive, and you will recover quickly. Dip into more negative feelings and you will feel burnt out. High negative energy is quite an uncomfortable place to be. It feels like you are fighting for survival all the time. Again, you will have to reduce the energy at some point since it could lead to burnout. Applying reason to emotion. As we said above, you can change how you feel. The key is to be aware of your emotional response and understand what might be behind it. That way you can apply some reason to the situation. For example, you might ask yourself some questions about possible course of action like how do I feel about this situation? How do I think I should do about it? What effect would that have for me and for other people? Does this action fit with my values? If not, what else could I do that might fit better? Is there anyone else that I could ask about this who might help me? This helps you to apply reason to an emotional response before reacting. For example, suppose you are afraid of being in the dark because once you got shut in a dark room when you were a child. You always have an emotional response to the dark because of your earlier experience. But you can remind yourself that you are now grown up and that there is nothing to frighten you. All you have to do is walk over to the light and turn it on. By practicing this, you can help your brain to understand that there is no need to be frightened and gradually retain your limbic system. Making decisions with emotions. When you make decisions, you can draw on reason, emotion, or a mixture of the two. Emotional decisions are sometimes seen as made in the heat of the moment, but emotions play a greater part in most decisions than we may be aware. If you are married, for example, you will know that considerable thought may go into the decision about whether or not to get married. Very few, however, would argue that the decision is made solely on the basis of logic. The best decisions are made using both logic and emotions. If you only use one or the other, your decisions may either not be very balanced or not support your emotional needs. Instead, you need to combine your emotional response with more rational considerations. You can do this by stopping before you decide, to give yourself a chance to think. Think about how you will feel as a result of each possible action. Consider what might happen as a result and how your decision might affect others. Would you be happy with those effects? Take some time out before making a decision. Consider the decision against your values. Does it fit with them? If not, why not? Think about what someone whom you respect would think about your decision. Are you happy with that? Finally, consider what would happen if everyone were to take the same action. If this would be a disaster, then probably best not to do it. Emotions in the workplace. Emotions in workplace play a large role in how an entire organization communicates within itself and to the outside world. Events at work have real emotional impact on participants. The consequences of emotional states in the workplace, both behavior and attitude, have substantial significance for individuals, groups, and society. Positive emotions in the workplace help employees obtain favorable outcomes, including achievement, job enrichment, and higher quality social context. Negative emotions such as fear, anger, stress, hostility, sadness, and guilt, however, increase the predictability of workplace events and how the outside world views the organization. Emotions normally are associated with specific events or occurrence and are intense enough to disrupt through processes. Moods, on the other hand, are more generalized feeling or states that are not typically identified with a particular stimulus and not sufficiently intense to interrupt ongoing thought process. There can be more consequences for allowing negative emotions to affect your general attitude or mood at work. Emotions and emotion management are a prominent features of organizational life. It is critical to create a publicly observable and desirable emotional display as a part of a job role. Strategies to manage emotional employees. Managers often brush emotional issues aside as are unworthy of their time and attention. But the cost of not dealing with these problems is often far greater. Employees end up focusing less on their work and more on the emotional issues. When an employee is unable to control their emotions at work, be it due to issues at home or conflict in the office, it can wreak havoc in the workplace, often resulting in overreactions all around. So how do you, as the boss, manage an emotional employee at work? If you ignore the problem, it won't go away on its own because the employee will focus on what is upsetting them more than their work. Plus, if it spills over to other employees, the productivity of the whole workplace can be affected. Here are tips on how to manage an emotional employee and restore the balance of the workplace. Read emotional cues and signals. Keep your employees' emotions and feeling in mind. If you pay close attention to the workplace, you can often find emotional signal which your staff is giving off. This could be body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions. Pay close attention so that you can tell how your employee are doing. Next one is empathize with those who are hurt. Employees who are in distress are usually met with contempt, indifference, and impatience in the workplace. Managers often belittle or ridicule the employees' issues or tell them to deal with it. Most people consider tears to be unprofessional, but that only because we forget that being human, at the end of the day, emotions can get even the best of us. We're all vulnerable to the uncontrollable emotions. None of these are responses help the employees in need at all and thus hurt them even more. Instead, view emotional outbursts as opportunities to listen, empathize with, and show compassion to a hurting employee. It doesn't have to be a long conversation. Even just a few minutes can be enough. When you find out what the problem is and show empathy, It can strengthen your relationship with the employees. The next one is find out what triggered them. There's always something behind an emotional employee's response. Dig into what is triggering this kind of behavior from them. What are they going through that is causing them to act like this? Avoid making any assumptions on why they are responding how they are. Instead, listen actively to the employee and all their issues. Making them feel respected and heard help you manage an emotional employee. The next one is turn the problem into an opportunity. Once you understand the problem, the next step in how to manage an emotional employee is to transform it into an opportunity for positive change. A problem caused by an emotional situation often can't be solved by the same person who's reacting to it. You can help them find the solution, get them the help that they may need, or resolve the conflicts which may be causing the problem. You can also refer them to where they can get the help that they need to overcome their emotional obstacles, like employee assistance program, coaching and conflict skills and communication training and things like that. The next one is give them space and time. Sometimes providing space and time for employees to deal with what's going on at their own pace is the most effective way to manage an emotional employee and help them move beyond the situation in a constructive way, especially when they are going through extreme emotions or distress. This can take the form of a break in the work day, a day or a week off, or making their workload lighter for some time. The next one is keep their dignity. As a manager, you should make it a point to ensure that emotional employees, especially those who end up crying in the workplace, still have their dignity kept intact. Never make an employee feel bad about crying and ridicule, or even worse, punish them for it. Most employees are very embarrassed when they become emotional, and managers should allow them to keep their self-respect by not pilling into it. Reword your message. Fix your tone. One of the commonest sources of emotional anguish and problems in organization is poor choice of vocabulary and tone during communication. You should always think through your message and tone, be it an email thread, a face-to-face meeting, or a phone conversation. Always keep this in mind before you communicate it. Consider all the possible emotional responses that it may provoke in the people who will receive it. With all this in mind, you should make an effort to always reframe your messages and tones in a positive way, because this is one of the most proactive steps that you can take to manage an emotional employee. The next one is prepare your employees for change. Organizational change often causes adverse emotional responses in employees. You should therefore put in place ways to prevent negative emotional effects, as well as address and minimize emotional issues when they occur. Also, the best way to handle organizational change is to discuss it with the staff. It will have an effect on. Be straight and honest about the transition, and give your staff the chance to share their concerns so that you can take them into consideration as you affect the change. The next one is stay in touch. Make sure to keep emotionally connected to your employees. Ask questions to gauge how they are feeling in the meetings and become attuned and sensitive to what makes them frustrated, sad, or angry. Encourage employees to treat each other with compassion and care throughout the workplace. You should also make sure to always follow up on how they are doing since their last issue in case of one. Train your managers. Finally, create training programs for your supervisors and managers to learn communication skills, positive management behavior, conflict management, and other leadership topics. These are the tools they need to help them better manage an emotional employee in the workplace, as well as lead the employees more effectively, such that fewer emotional issues emerge in the workplace in the first place. Being able to not only control your emotions but gauge the emotions of those around you and effectively influence them is imperative to success in the workplace. Toxicity in the workplace is a regular occurrence and an occupational hazard. That is why the success of many projects and the organization itself depends on the success of handlers. The people, usually managers, whose interventions either assuage individuals' pain from toxicity or eliminate it completely. One can conclude that the ability to effectively deal with emotions and emotional information in the workplace assists employees in mapping occupational stress and maintaining psychological well-being. Now let's understand about balancing the dual role of people manager and technical expert. Managers are usually appointed to teams that reflect their expertise in a particular field, and the same expertise provides a level of authority relative to their staff. However, operational and economic business objectives can become more pressing, and a shift from technical to managerial authority is required. It is important for managers to carefully assess how and where to find appropriate balance. The manager is responsible both for doing, here called expertise, and for delegating, here called management. We'll learn about shouldering the dual role of manager and expert. Identifying the two components of management. The first one is the manager as a bearer of law. As a bearer of law, the manager undertakes the process of standardization. The first responsibility is to set out of common frame of reference with members of staff. The manager must structure relationships with staff by allocating responsibilities, setting objectives, monitoring, supervising, and evaluating. The more clearly the hierarchy defines the norms, standards, and objectives, the better the managers will be able to lead and direct actions. This ability by transmit and share a personal vision of goals, methods, and actions is an absolute minimum requirement for successful management. The second one is the manager as a provider of support. The second group of responsibilities relates to the development of skill and autonomy among staff and the recognition of success. By utilizing their technical and professional expertise and transmitting it to their staff, managers are able to transform the relationship from a hierarchical one to a managerial one. In other words, it is essential to give staff autonomy, power, and skills within a predefined framework in which relationships are structured according to common point of reference. Your first responsibility is to define a common frame of reference with your staff. This is your role as a bearer of the law. The next step is to organize, lead the team, explain actions, communicate results, manage conflicts, encourage cooperation to resolve problems. All of these activities enable you to synergy and performance of your team by building, maintaining, and developing motivation. Now we will examine the provision of support, beginning with the development of autonomy among staff, welcoming and integrating, developing skills, delegating, encouraging participation, listening and giving advice, helping to resolve problems. All of these actions are part of the process of developing staff autonomy. Now let's understand the other dimensions of support, knowing how to maintain effective relationship by conducting face-to-face interviews, by overseeing meetings, by steering change, by managing conflicts, and by listening to personal and professional problems. Skills you need. The good news is that you can succeed and succeed spectacularly in your management role. To do so, however, you must learn a new set of skills, which includes delegation. As a manager, you must know how to delegate tasks to your team effectively. This will keep you from spending time doing things that should no longer be your responsibility. The next one is briefing. You need to keep your team up to date on their progress, what you expect from them, and what will happen in the future. The next one is motivation. Your team is now your responsibility. This means that you must keep them motivated and moving forward. The next skill that you would need is communication. In your previous role, good communication might have been helpful but not vital. But now, as a manager, the ability to communicate well is essential to your success. The next one is discipline. At some point, you'll probably have to discipline someone on your team. Whether a team member is breaking a rule, underperforming, or upsetting others, it's up to you to restore peace. Knowing how to discipline effectively and diplomatically is the key to keeping your team's trust and respect. Recruitment. If your team is changing or expanding, then you will have to hire new people. But finding the right new people can be difficult. So recruitment is definitely one of the skills that you would need. Few tips for making the transition. Do a personal SWOT analysis. Make a list of what you must improve to be a better manager for your team. Many managers let others assess their skills and then wait until their performance review to discover what skills they lack. Don't make that mistake. Spend time now identifying your weaknesses so that you can start improving on them immediately. Next one is stay away from technical work. Resist the temptation to get involved with technical projects that aren't your responsibilities. Yes, you probably enjoy this type of work and want to feel successful doing something you know well, but it's now your team's responsibility. Spending too much time doing technical work will only hold you back as manager. Sure, it's good to pitch in when you can, but make sure that you do the managing part of your role first. Find a mentor. Look for someone in your organization who has made a transition similar to yours. A mentor can offer you some great advice on succeeding in your new role and help you avoid some of the mistakes that he or she has made. Meet with every team members. Make it a priority to meet with everyone on your team personally. Find out what interests and motivates them and check that they have everything they need to be happy and successful in their role. This shows that you are taking an interest in them and it helps you get to know the people you are managing. Find out what your team expects from you. These expectations are often unspoken, and learn one skill at a time. Acquiring a whole new set of skills for your new management position can be overwhelming. Don't try to learn everything at once. Focus on one skill at a time so that you can learn each skill well. So the key points over here is making the transition from technical expert to manager can be challenging, especially if you have little or no management experience. Look at the key skills you need to be an effective manager and focus on learning one new skill at a time. Do a personal SWOT analysis and try to find a mentor who has experienced, the same situation. Also, don't do tasks associated with your previous roles. Your job now is to manage your team.